It's really 50-50 in Glen Park. If you look at the row of hills that runs down San Francisco, Twin Peaks to Diamond Heights and down, we're really right on that border. And where, you can kind of see it on the map. And so I would say if it's sunny in the Mission and foggy in the Sunset, I really think it's just about 50-50.
Welcome to the Bay Insider with Amanda and Ying, where we talk about history, lifestyle, and real estate in the San Francisco Bay Area. Welcome back to the Bay Insider. I'm here with Ying and our special guest, Hilary Schiraldi. Hilary is the president of the Glen Park Association. So today we're going to be talking about Glen Park, which is arguably my favorite neighborhood in the city. Hilary, you've lived in Glen Park for 15 years?
15 years this month. I started volunteering with the Glen Park Association, I think around 2012, originally with the Public Safety Committee, checking in with Ingleside Station, going to their community meetings, doing the crime report for Glen Park, all the gossip there. It's a great job for a busybody. I was membership secretary, and I've been volunteering with the board. If anyone here listening to this today lives in Glen Park and would like to volunteer with the Glen Park Association, we have quarterly meetings, and the board meets once a month on the second Wednesday.
I just recently zoomed in on the elections meeting, which was awesome because the Glen Park Association invited people on both sides of the different measures that are going to be on the ballot.
We asked Californians to weigh in on a lot of things, and some of them are very technical. I always think it's interesting to meet the people from the campaigns who have gotten involved in these measures for different reasons. So it's one of my favorite things that we do with the Glen Park Association. Thank you for being there. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah. Also, Hilary, you are the business librarian at the UC Berkeley. What does that entail?
So the business library is a branch of the university library. We're located at the Haas School of Business, and it's my job to subscribe to databases, buy journals and books, and answer questions that people have about doing company and industry research and finding financial market data. And I work with faculty and students and community members, and I've been doing that for quite some time. Before that, I was a librarian at an investment bank in New York.
Well, you started working at Berkeley before you moved to Glen Park.
That's right. We lived in Noe Valley for a year before we bought our house.
So why Glen Park?
Why Glen Park? So my husband is a software engineer. He works in tech, and we wanted to be sure that if he ever needed a job that was like down the peninsula or someplace, that he was able to get there. And because I was working at Berkeley, I wanted to be near a BART station. And we looked around a bit in the Mission. We looked around a bit around Balboa Park, but really it just seemed like Glen Park was the place for us.
This is actually the perfect segue into what we want to talk about Glen Park, which is geography.
Okay.
And it's very interesting. So I grew up in San Francisco. For a long time, people didn't know Glen Park. And now I think it's become much more well-known, and people understand. You've got that BART station there. It's just 15 minutes to downtown. And for all the people that work down the peninsula and tech and all of those kinds of things, it's just zoom. You're on the freeway, and it's so fast. And you're close to the heart of the city, right? I lived on St. Mary's Avenue, and I worked in Union Square for a while, and I would just jump on my bicycle and I would go down San Jose Avenue, Valencia, and then to downtown. So geographically speaking, that's kind of where it is located. And then it's really cool in terms of the geography of the area. Right?
Yes.
Because you have the canyon there, and you're kind of like a bowl, right?
Yeah. So
you probably have good views where you are.
We have a direct view of McLaren Park, looking out at the Excelsior. We're up on our little hill in Glen Park, and then that hill just across the way on the other side of San Jose Avenue and 280. It really is. It's quite dramatic.
Yeah.
And we can see San Bruno Mountain as well out in the distance. And then we can see Mount Davidson off to the side from our house. And I really do think Glen Park is really a dramatic landscape.
It's such a special place.
Do you have a name called Little Switzerland or something, Amanda?
Yeah, that's what people call Glen Park, the Little Switzerland. It started a long time ago, maybe at the turn of the century, previous century, when real estate people actually were calling it Little Switzerland to kind of get interest in the area. 165, 175 years ago, they had herds of elk and antelope and deer and mountain lions and wolves.
They might still have some.
Grizzly bears.
Now, still have some mountain lion and,
Well, every once in a while, they do come through the Diamond Heights. I don't know if anybody remembers that story.
A couple years ago.
It's a handful of years ago.
We've had coyotes recently.
Oh, so many.
Oh, that is all over the city.
There are.
Coyotes that are in there. I saw one walking. As a matter of fact, I might add it to the pictures of this podcast. Well, I took a picture of one walking right by the Blue School.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Which is where my daughter goes to school. So
It was kind of crazy. It was in the middle of the day.
Yeah, they don't care.
keep your dogs on a leash, people.
Yeah, and don't just let the cats roam. So yes, you got the canyon, you've got all the beautiful views.
Yes.
You've got nice kind of twisty streets. Some of them are narrow, but not as narrow as Bernal Heights.
That's true.
And going into the history of the area, you know, if you go back to the, say, 1850s, you had a lot of cattle farms, dairy farms. And then in 1868, you had the first dynamite company, Giant Powder Works.
Yes, there is a monument to that dynamite factory at the entrance to Glen Canyon Park. So we have a neighbor in Glen Park. Her name's Evelyn Rose, and she runs the Glen Park Neighborhoods History Project.
She's amazing.
She is.
Amazing.
She's a tireless researcher of the history of our neighborhoods and the surrounding neighborhoods. And she did most of the legwork to get that historical marker put in. I think the Glen Park Association did write a letter of support, or might have gotten given a grant or something to have that built. But
Nice.
yeah,
I gotta go look for it.
Yeah, so and that dynamite company, Giant Powder Works, was licensed by Alfred Noble,
Okay.
who was, you know, of the Nobel Peace Prize, right? So whenever you think of Glen Park, you can think of him.
So dynamites, was that related to mining industry or fireworks? I'm just curious. Like,
For
why was it dynamite?
blasting through areas and making new buildable spots and getting from one place to another.
Okay, so it was a big thing back then.
And there were tons of dynamite factories
right,
in
that
the
was why
city.
in Sunset
actually.
too, right?
Yeah. And then there was a huge explosion, right, that happened in Glen Park, which is then it closed down. But I think 2 miles away, windows blew out. So it was kind of crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, that was in 1868. In 1892, the San Francisco and San Mateo rail line
That's right.
was started. People would take the rail line to 30th and Church, and then they would get on the train, which would go what's now Chenery Street. I don't know what it was at that time. And then it would go all the way to Diamond and Chenery, which is kind of like the heart, right, of the area there, business area. And then it would go over Isles Creek, which is the largest creek in all of San Francisco.
And my understanding is it is the only creek that runs above ground in San Francisco.
Yeah.
That's probably right. I don't know of any.
Yeah, and much more of it was above ground. And then in the 20s, they kind of forced it underground, and right where the 280 and the 101 kind of meet.
Yes, if you've ever driven around like where Alamany and Bayshore and 101 and 280 all come together there's a little road. There's a part where you can like turn onto Alamany, and when it's very wet, they close that off because the creek just wants to come above ground in that spot.
So this is not quite related, but real estate perspective, when we're seeing houses in that area often have water coming up.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
on Cayuga.
Yeah.
In Mission Terrace.
Okay.
That's kind of the bottom of the basin.
Right.
They've kind of had a bad time with flooding.
Yeah.
Down in that area.
Okay.
And when it got really bad, there was even in Glen Park itself, I believe on Lippard Street one time, there was about 6 inches of water that during a storm that wasn't able to drain.
Yeah, and I don't know if it had anything to do with that either. It was just other underground springs, which we also have throughout the city. But my house on St. Mary's, we had a bunch of issues with water coming up through the foundation. Eventually we did, French drains and
Yeah.
a sump pump and all this kind of stuff and fixed it.
We had to do that too. We had to have a geotechnical engineer come
Yeah.
out and we had a French drain built. But yeah, we had flooding 3 years in a row in our basement before we really got that.
Yeah, so something to
Yeah.
always look out for, real
Yes.
estate related,
Yeah.
in terms of anything on ground floors. Like when we bought our house,
Yes.
it had been drought for years and years. We bought in 2006. We thought, oh, it's safe to just build out this downstairs. We never get any water in here, and then of course it was all this.
Almost the exact same situation. When we bought the house, the basement was unfinished. It was dirt floors. The laundry machines were down there. If you dropped a sock, it was filthier than any laundromat. And, so we finished the basement, and then the very next year, it was full of water. And,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we had put in wood floors, and then we had to replace them.
Remember that. I
You went through the same thing.
Exact same.
But I just find it's interesting because this is something that you only know that knowing the geography, right? It will make sense when you look for a house or neighborhood. It's something to watch out for.
Yes, for sure. But going back to the Baldwin real estate situation, so his whole point was that he wanted to petition the city to put money into creating this park and zoo in where Glen Canyon is now. And his thought was, and then I'll have all this land that I'll sell because everybody will want to come be by these attractions. And he didn't get the city to kind of pony up the money that he was hoping for. So they did something that was a little scaled down from that, but it's kind of crazy. Hilary, have you read about the zoo?
I don't think I know much about the zoo.
Hardly anyone does. It's like one of those histories that was kind of buried in San Francisco lore. But basically he started this zoo with all these crazy things going on. They'd have dancing shows. They'd have people who went up in hot air balloons and parachuted down. A lot of boxing matches, pugilists, right?
Nice.
They had that. They had all kinds of different animals. Lions there, baboons. They had all kinds of things.
Is it baboon monkey?
Yeah,
It's kind of was a baboon.
yeah. It's a kind of. I guess it's a kind of monkey, right?
I think
kind
so.
of thing.
Okay, in that family.
Yeah, in that family. It became quite an attraction, and then tons of thousands of people would come, and they had the Morro Castle over there.
Yeah, I remember seeing a picture of it.
Yeah, so the Morro Castle, and that was like a Moorish style castle. This guy, T.S. Baldwin, who is not related to A.S. Baldwin, who was the promoter of the zoo,
Okay.
but he did the first recorded parachute jump in San Francisco in 1887. And he was in the circus with Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. And he actually, this is not in Glen Park, but this is a thing that the same guy did. He walked a tightrope from the Cliff House to Seal Rock.
Oh
Wow.
my goodness.
Which,
That would be
if you look
amazing to
at that,
see.
Seal Rock
Yeah.
is way out there.
That's a long way.
Yeah, so he did some crazy parachuting things at the Glen Park Zoo as well. So anyway, so after this whole thing with the zoo and all these people coming, Baldwin was trying to sell his lots of land for $250 a piece, by the way, which is not a whole lot of money. He wasn't selling them. He had like 75 different lots, and they weren't selling because people didn't want all these people traipsing through their land on the way to go to the zoo.
Oh.
So it was interesting. Like they,
Yep.
have this peaceful, wonderful area. And, but no, it's not, they didn't want, so it didn't sell. And so he ended up then selling the land. And what was really interesting was then the real estate in Glen Park kind of blew up after the earthquake.
Yeah.
Which did with a lot of areas. So he probably regretted that he then sold it, because he sold it for a lot less, and he could have kept it and made tons of money after the earthquake, because that was one of the areas where they had a refugee camp, right?
That's my understanding, is that Glen Park really increased in population after the earthquake. There were earthquake cottages. There was one on my block.
Still, right? You still see them.
I think the one that was on my block, I think, was finally replaced about 10 years ago. But yeah, there were several. And certainly I know my house was built in 1911, about 5 years after. And I think much of Glen Park was built
Right
around that time.
Definitely. Which brings us to also another interesting thing with Glen Park and the suffrage movement. Joanna Pinther, I don't know if you've read about her, but she was one of the people who was organizing the very first march to, I think it was Oakland, for the suffrage movement. And her husband was the very first president of the Glen Park Improvement Association. And it was interesting because there's some ties between her and then another woman, I can't remember her name right now, but in Mill Valley, and they had the Marin Improvement Association. It seems like they fashioned their improvement with those, and that they also marched together in the whole suffrage movement. So that was kind of cool.
What were they marching for?
For the women's vote, right to vote.
Oh, okay. Sorry. You have to explain this to me.
Yes.
Okay.
Women's right to vote.
All right.
Which, thank goodness we have. So
voting, right?
Yeah.
Voting.
There were more women's clubs in Glen Park than anywhere else. And so it's really kind of an interesting history, and going all the way up to 60s, right, where you had the Gumtree Girls.
That's right.
I guess there were
3 main women,
who tell us what they did.
Yeah, why gum trees?
There was a plan to build a central freeway, kind of where O'Shaughnessy is right now, adjacent to Glen Canyon Park, but it was going to be a real freeway that was going to come up from where 280 is now in Glen Park, and it was going to go right through the middle of the city. And
right through the playground in the canyon too.
Right through the canyon. Where today we have the playground and the tennis courts and the sports fields. That's where the road was going to run. And they actually started this. If you ever drive on Bosworth Street in Glen Park, you'll notice there's only houses on one side of the street. The other side, they had already taken those houses by eminent domain and pulled them down.
Okay.
And it's also like right over the creek right there.
Correct.
But that's they were getting ready to do that, and some Glen Park moms, Glen Park women said, no, we don't want a freeway here. We don't want it coming through our neighborhood. We don't want to, cut through our natural area in Glen Canyon Park. And those eucalyptus trees, they're known as Australian gum trees as well. So they called themselves the Gumtree Girls. They were going to save the gum trees.
And I actually don't know if they called themselves the Gumtree Girls or if it was a derogatory name and then they owned it.
You might be right.
And they were like, oh, those Gumtree Girls.
Yeah.
The developers.
Gum tree is the same as eucalyptus.
That's right.
It's the same thing? I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And those were, so it was Minnie Baxter, Zoanne Nordstrom, who recently passed, right?
She did just a year or two ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. And then Joan Sewell.
Yes.
Still?
She also died very recently.
And Jerry Arkush, who I think is also not alive anymore, unfortunately. They defeated the plan for the freeway in 1970, finally put that to bed. So we have them to thank for. Can you imagine what it would be like if that was a freeway through Glen Park instead?
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy. So the city purchased the land from the Crocker estate in 1922. So then it became public land in the canyon area. They had a rec center that was called the Red Barn, and they had a dance hall there and a bowling alley and all this stuff, but that burnt down in 1932. And the current rec center that they have now was completed in 1938. And then, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago. How many years ago?
They just redid it, right?
Yeah.
It's almost
relatively recent. But,
but
longer ago than I think, because time passes.
I know.
it was Oh, my daughter was just little then. I think it was maybe 2016.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that they renovated the Glen Park Rec Center.
Okay.
And they did such a beautiful job.
It's really nice now. They put in a climbing wall. They redid the indoor gym, and now there's more reservable rooms for community events and birthday parties and things like that. And they put in some interesting art, and they did a really nice job with
And
that.
the public bathrooms are really nice.
Very important.
The whole canyon has so many great things that
Yeah, it's really one of those natural areas, a little like Golden Gate Park, a lot of hiking trails. The creek is visible, and the kind of wetland type plants are growing alongside it. In some places, the trail is a boardwalk to keep you over the really squishy, marshy ground. And there's a lot of exposed boulders. The Franciscan chert is the rock that's native to the area. And a lot of rock climbers know about Glen Park and Glen Canyon Park because it's one of the few places in the city where you can climb outdoors.
Oh, yeah. Way back when I was in high school in Urban Pioneers, we went there. It was like a alternative type school where we go on survivalist trips and things like that. So we went and we did rock climbing in Glen Canyon.
With protection, without protection?
Yeah, with protection. Yeah. Definitely. Although they did eventually shut down the program because one kid did die on one of the trips that they were on. However, I still think, that could happen in any type of thing. It was a great program. At any rate, and we rappelled off of the cliff by Randall Museum.
Wow.
So we do all these crazy things. But getting back to parks and arts in Glen Park, obviously Glen Canyon, we've talked about that. There's so many hiking trails, so many things that you can do. There's also Walter Haas Park, which is a little bit further up, right, as you go towards Diamond Heights Boulevard. And then they built that really cool trail from Walter Haas to Billy Goat Hill.
Yes. The Recreation and Park Department found that people were sort of making an informal trail between those two parks. I believe Billy Goat Hill is really on Beacon Street, and Walter Haas Park is kind of at the top of the hill there.
Okay.
And so they said, hey, it's a little bit dangerous, and we really don't want to encourage people to go off trail. It's not good for natural areas. So when we notice that this is happening, we like to come in and, build a safer and more proper trail. And so they came in and they talked to the neighborhood, and they talked to the Glen Park Association. We appreciated that. And there was, a little bit of opposition from people. Oh, I don't know. Is it going to bring more people here? But I think it's worked out really well. It's a beautiful trail, really nice, nice steps, really comfortable to use. And it just helps. It's just another way to get around the neighborhood.
Yeah, and you start,
right?
Yeah, you start, and you have Walter Haas Park, and it has the basketball court and the children's playground, and a nice little field, and then a bench that I've taken pictures from that bench that looks out on the city. Like I have so many pictures. I had like a circle walk that I would do from my house, and it's perfect because also you can then drop down into Noe Valley, down Billy Goat Hill, and you're there at 30th.
It's a popular spot for family photos, engagement photos.
Okay.
I just want to make sure it's not too windy.
All right.
It can be very windy. And then up there along kind of that same area, you have the Ametista Stairs.
Yes.
Which they also did a project of beautifying and adding new plants and stuff.
Yes. So those steps go between Bemis and Miguel up to Everson Street. And at the very end of Everson Street was just kind of a natural area. And just recently they've done some improvements there, put in, some rocks and a little path, and really big views from there. You can see across to Bernal Heights and the Holly Park Reservoir. You can see across to the East Bay. Really, really nice up there. Yeah.
I'm very impressed by Park and Rec together. Out of all the city departments.
Once you get to the top of the Ametista Stairs there on Everson, that's some of the most expensive real estate.
Yes, with those big views. But it's a little bit isolated. So for some people, that's really appealing to them.
Right.
That it's almost like you're off in the suburbs. It's a very kind of cul-de-sac street. You have plenty of parking. But for other people, you need to get to the BART station, you need to get to the bus stop, and it's a little bit isolated. there. So,
Yeah.
different, there's something for everyone in Glen
That's
Park.
right. And then as we get more into Glen Park proper, there's the Glen Park Greenway that they've worked on for years to kind of connect from the downtown area to the Glen Canyon.
So as I was talking about earlier, when they, kind of took down some of those houses to make way for the freeway, that the freeway didn't happen. So there was kind of this open space running parallel to Bosworth Street, basically above where Azaleas Creek runs. So the land, I believe, is owned by PUC. Because they own the water infrastructure in San Francisco. And there was a Glen Park community plan done with the planning department. They worked on it for over a decade. It came out just around 2010 or so, I think, the final one. And it did call for an improved greenway for access between the BART station and Glen Canyon Park. And the Glen Park Association got a gift from a donor. And it was significant. It was a few tens of thousands of dollars. And we used that money to hire a landscape architect. Glen Park Association colleague, Nicholas Dewar, has been really the lead on this project for well over a decade. But they came up with this plan for improvements and landscape improvements and trail improvements. And it's really been a ton of work. They have work days every month, but it's beautiful. And a lot of native plants. They planted a lot of oak trees. They did decomposed granite trails that have really good drainage. The trails don't get muddy in the rain. You can still use them. And recently an initiative has been, they're planting a native meadow in the area. There's a lot of invasive plants like ivy and oxalis that don't really belong in California. And so they're trying to replace that with more native grasses. And they found someone whose hobby was growing native grasses. And they were able to bring a lot of them in, and they planted flags so people knew that they weren't weeds. And we really got a whole team of people really taking care of that native meadow. That is on the first part of the greenway, I believe, between Brompton and Lippard. And that's been really nice. And then between Lippard and the next street and the next one up, they've been planting oak trees and really making that greenway nice. And people walk their dogs on it. People walk their kids on it. They go jogging.
It's always been sort of a greenway, like weeds, many weeds. And
there was
when I was younger, I'd go through the trail, but it's like you get lost in the weeds, in the fennel.
But
it's great that they've done that. And then there's the Burnside Stairs. Colette Krucher and Aileen Barr were the mosaic tilists that helped with that project. Krucher is the one who did the 16th Avenue.
I was going to say the same.
She's friends with my mom, and I have a really cool thing that she made me for my birthday.
Nice.
California poppies that I have on my wall.
That's great. That's awesome.
Mosaic.
Renee Berger, our neighbor, she really took on that project. First was the mural. Sort of a Glen Park history mural by those steps. And then she's been working on this tiling project for the last couple of years. So really grateful to Renee for all her energy, really beautifying the kind of, it's a kind of funny cul-de-sac there.
So I'm just curious, those projects, now we have several staircases in the city now, right? That have the same look. They take a long time to plan, right?
They do. You gotta get permission from the city. You've got to hire the artist. You got to raise money. People were donating to have a commemorative tile. And then, oh boy, at the very end, she ran into some issues. Were the steps themselves up to code, or did there need to be a whole lot of work before they could install the tiles? Supervisor Mandelman got involved. I think they were able to work it out. But poor Renee, like a volunteer takes on something.
What if I just want to be part of a stairway? Say, I want a tile for me.
The project has to be happening.
In process.
I finally got the mural from Amos done on the side of the cafe.
Yes. The Amos Goldbaum mural on the side of Pebbles Cafe.
So that was a project that I spearheaded.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's great.
Yeah, so it was years and years in the making. I had a petition, and I had people signing it saying they wanted it, and then I wanted to get it done on the side of Buddy's Market because that whole wall needs to be painted. I still haven't given up on working on that, but it's impossible to get into touch with the owner. So if anybody listening knows the owner of that building. So then there's bits of art throughout.
There are.
Glen Park. There's the beautiful mosaic on the side of the Blue School, right? The Glen Park
Yes.
School. That's absolutely gorgeous.
Mhm.
And then all the little lanes, like Ohlone Lane,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yes, a homeowner on Ohlone Way hired an artist to paint a mural. The Ohlone being a local Native American tribe, and they did hire an artist to do a mural with some themes around the local Native community.
Fascinating.
It's Josu Rojas.
That's right.
That's
Thank you.
artist.
Is that how I don't know if I pronounced it correctly. If I didn't, I apologize, but that's who did the, yeah.
So many things to check out in Glen Park, right?
There's a couple more murals. There's a lot of private homeowners who have murals. I did
Yes.
like the one on Ohlone Way. We have one on our house.
Nice.
We have an Anna's hummingbird and a fuchsia.
Oh, nice.
And that is by Cameron Moberg. He's a local artist. He lives in Viz Valley. And there's another Cameron Moberg that you can see on Chenery Street, a big black cat on somebody's
Oh, yeah. On Chenery Street. That house just recently sold.
Yeah?
Yeah.
They're keeping the mural, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, so far it's still there.
Camera1SF on Instagram if you want to look up Cameron.
Okay.
So yeah, Glen Park has what, and I think in a lot of cities you would just call an alleyway.
Right.
But they're unpaved. They're just kind of dirt roads. We call them the unimproved lanes. The main ones are Penny Lane, Poppy Lane, and Ohlone Way. And some of them are used for like garage access, and some of them are a little more park-like.
Okay.
One of them, Penny Lane, I think it officially, through the Parks Alliance, is also a street park.
Mm-hmm.
And the neighbors do a lot of improvements and do a lot of planting, and they're all really popular places to walk your dogs, walk your kids,
Right,
go for a
little-
jog. And it's
secret path.
It
feels really cool. Like you're going back in time,
Mhm.
right?
I always take visitors for walks on those lanes. I
Mhm.
think they're not expecting in the middle of the city to find like dirt roads.
Yeah, you
and,
just kind of weave through the
Yeah.
hills of Glen Park.
and like, oh, here's an apple tree and a blackberry bush.
I think that's the overall feel of Glen Park, right?
Mhm.
It's just away from the city, even though you're in the center
Right.
of the city. Very different from Noe Valley. Noe Valley, you're in the middle of the city with all the activities. Glen
Yeah.
Park, it feels completely different.
Yeah. Penny Lane used to be a 19th century carriage path. Yeah,
So
sounds like
carriage,
all of them.
carriage, that's why.
Yeah.
You
That
can
makes
imagine.
sense.
I mean, you could you
Yeah.
can close your eyes and imagine. Keep your eyes open. So then the businesses in
Mhm.
Glen Park. Glen Park has a really cool, compact kind of downtown center, and there are not a ton of shops or restaurants, but there's just enough, right? I think kind of like the anchor point is the Canyon Market.
Absolutely.
They employ so many people.
By far the biggest employer in Glen Park.
Yeah, they have all the fresh baked breads and salads and sandwiches, and the butcher's fantastic.
Award-winning butcher.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. I mean, just the visuals of the store and the way they have it put together on top of the products that they carry. I love it. It is under new ownership now, Gus's.
Yes, that's right. The original owners, Janet and Richard Tarloff, they, after 15 years of not really going on vacation ever, they realized that they shared a lot of suppliers with Gus's Market. They thought that it would
It's a
be,
good fit.
and they still have the same sandwich menu
Mm-hmm.
because I think the whole neighborhood warned them, do not mess with the deli
Really?
or the
that good?
bakery.
Yeah,
Oh,
they've got their little
Oh,
bakery
okay.
cafe. They make good
They,
coffee.
they bake their own bread.
Okay.
Yeah, the challah. I love the challah.
They do
Oh my
they do a
gosh.
nice challah on Fridays.
Make a good French toast with that.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Canyon Market is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Higher Grounds is my absolute favorite
Yeah.
restaurant of all time, and I've gone there since I was a little kid.
What do they serve?
Well, they're crepes.
Mhm.
He does like salads, crepes, breakfast foods. I think now he's finally closed on at least Mondays. But you know, Manhal, how do you pronounce his last
I think it's Joanna.
China.
Yeah.
So he owns a lot of things. over
He
there.
does. I believe he owns the Italian restaurant
Mhm.
Manzoni.
Manzoni,
Okay.
and then also Petit Laurent.
He
which
did.
hasn't
Oh
reopened yet.
gosh. Yeah. So it used to be if you said Glen Park, some people would say, "Oh, where La Cornetta is." Some people would say, "Oh, where the dive bar is, Glen
Yeah.
Park Station," and some people would say, "Oh, where the French restaurant is."
Yeah.
And it was a lovely French restaurant, and with impeccable timing, just before COVID, the owner, Laurent, moved back to France to be with his elderly mother. And he sold the restaurant and the building to Monhall, who owned Higher Grounds next door. And he kept it going just for a few months until COVID, and hasn't been able to open it back up since. And
that's so sad.
I know.
I talked to him about it the other day. He does have plans.
Okay, good.
He has plans in the works. So, yeah. Well, with Higher Ground, so having gone there since forever, since I was little, he is behind the counter. Yep. He is taking the order. He is cooking the food. He is washing the dishes. He is bussing the table.
All by himself?
He does it all. I mean, he has help every now and again. But a lot of times it's just him. There's nobody else in there. And, and chatting people up on top of all of that. And then somehow running Manzoni at the same time. And it's like, it's incredible. I just don't know when this man sleeps. Yeah, no, but their crepes are great. I get the Simply Italian. That is absolutely my favorite crepe there. A little bit of nutmeg in it. Delicious. So yeah, when I'm on tour, I try to stop there, quickly eat, and then keep moving. And then the cheese boutique.
Yes.
Rick and Nada.
That's right.
They're fantastic. Mm-hmm. I love them. I have a sandwich, which I call and I say, it's Amanda. They know what I'm talking about.
Aww. What's on the Amanda?
It is smoked turkey, Havarti, avocado on a French roll with no pickles, but everything else.
Nice.
And it is delicious. I think they make the best sandwich ever. It's like, it's not too much. They have like a little bit of, I don't know if it's like a kind of a salt and pepper.
Yeah, it's the little blend, little sandwich.
They put along with a little bit of oil and vinegar or whatever. It is so good.
You're making me hungry just listening to all the sandwiches and food.
The Hilary sandwich is...
what's in the Hilary sandwich? I want to hear.
It is country pate and mustard and pickles on baguette.
That's lovely. I like
different.
It's really good.
Okay, next time we'll try both. I go there, order Amanda special and Hillary special.
And then I think they make the baba ganoush and the
They do make their own baba ganoush and hummus. And the preschool across the street, they serve his hummus to the kids.
That's where my son used to go, Glen Park Association.
They eat all vegetarian at that school.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, so we'll talk about schools in a second. We can talk about that. But getting back to the cheese boutique, so they also, in addition to having amazing sandwiches and homemade baba ganoush and hummus, they have products from all over the world, kind of like specialty grocery.
Yeah, they've got a little international grocery in there. You can get, all your English and Italian and Middle Eastern things.
I feel I need to go on vacation in Glen Park for one day.
Yes,
to check everything out.
Yeah, so I love them. I love everything they have. They're so sweet. They remember my son, who is now 6 feet tall, who was just a little guy when we were, living in the neighborhood. But yeah, so they're awesome. And then there's so many great places. Destination Bacon Company.
Yes, that is the closest business to my house, I am sorry to say.
Is this a good thing or bad thing? Depends on which day you look at.
A good thing and a bad thing.
For a special treat for on our way to school, my daughter can get her breakfast there instead of at home.
Ooh,
eat a little pastry
lucky.
on the way to school.
They're so rich, right?
Yeah,
so rich.
They do a really nice job. I am very particular about my pastries, particularly croissants. I think too many croissants are like puffy.
Yeah, and bready.
Yeah, and bready. And they're truly flaky and crisp and crumbly. And he does them just right. They are delicious.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of anything with apricot there. I love the apricot scone and the apricot Danish.
Ooh, I love it. What other restaurants do you like in Glen Park?
Love Giolina.
Yes,
they have pizza, Neapolitan style pizzas. They're really great.
And they do a kids pizza, which is really awesome. And my son used to always get it with a little bit of bacon on it.
Yes,
it's delicious.
I love the Atomica with a little egg in the middle. I feel like a lot of places do that now, but they were pretty early, putting bacon and egg on a pizza.
definitely.
Everyone loves La Cornetta.
Of course.
Our taqueria. People, a lot of people pass through Glen Park on their commute for the freeway entrances and for the BART station is. And I think a lot of people stop in at La Cornetta and grab a burrito.
Okay. Yeah, they're great. I've been going there forever. I love the chili relleno burrito.
Yeah.
Which is way too much calories for one burrito.
My daughter is a big fan of Cuppa. Still waiting for them to reopen after the water main break. Oh, they look almost done in there. That's the boba shop with the frozen yogurt. And then, don't sleep on the other side of Bosworth Street. One Wan Thai, I think is very good. Quite good Thai food.
Yeah. And then you have, also coming back to this side, Wynn Garden.
Oh, yes. We eat Wynn Garden a lot.
Yeah. Really good. My son again loves the fake chicken, orange chicken.
They do a lot with the meatless chicken.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it's good for vegetarians.
Kind of like candy. Tastes kind of like candy.
Yeah. they do that American style Chinese food, but they do it quite well.
That's good.
I mean, yeah, I like it a lot.
And then in terms of businesses like Perch, I buy presents for people.
Did you get your necklace at Perch? I keep looking.
I actually did not get this at Perch. I got this necklace in Noe Valley. I can't remember. It was it's like a special.
I was going to say, where did you get your necklace?
This was my mom's actually. It's my October necklace.
It's for those people who can't see. It is a spider web in gold. It looks lovely.
With a spider on it.
It's very classy. Just the right amount of October spirit.
Lovely necklace.
So so they have beautiful jewelry at Perch.
They do. They have cookbooks and scented candles and they have kids stuff. My daughter always wants to pop in for a surprise ball and a new stuffy. Don't you have enough stuffy?
If you're ever just like, oh, I got to get somebody something quick, they'll have something for whoever that somebody is.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's like very curated and small, but it has what you need.
Zoll does a beautiful job with Perch.
Love it.
Perch SF on Instagram.
Yes, love it. And then Bird and Beckett is the most wonderful bookstore, maybe in the city. Eric Whittington is the owner, proprietor, and they have lots of live music events there. They have,
at a bookstore.
Bookstore. They have new and used books, and on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday evenings, they have live music. They'll have a lot of jazz ensembles.
That is so cool.
It's such a huge thing for the community. And I mean, adds just a lot of color to the neighborhood to have something like that. I think
it makes the neighborhood feel lively to be walking up the street and hear live music playing.
It's actually a bookstore. That's such a good fit. I never thought about it. But excellent.
Yeah. I love that place. Then there's the health related places. So you have Fit Glen, where you can go get your workout in.
That's right.
Classes and different things. East West Integrative. They do like acupuncture.
They do,
massage. There's Pono Boutique, which I have not been to yet, but I've been meaning to go there, and it looks amazing, and I hear people love it.
Pono is wonderful. I'm a client. It's run by Dev Carvalho, and she's a wonderful esthetician. I'm not sure she herself is taking new clients these days, but her team is great. Facials and waxing and all the stuff you want from a spa. They sell really nice products.
Nice.
It's a beautiful looking place.
She's got a real eye for it. She really made in the middle of Glen Park a real sanctuary type place. Really recommend Pono.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And then we also now have the Dignity Health Urgent Care.
Yes.
So if you have any emergency situations, like you were slicing some tomatoes in your kitchen and you sliced your finger off, you can just go down there.
Absolutely.
So that's good. Bella Cafe, right, who's been there forever. Great place to have a cup of coffee right before you're going to the BART station. I used to study there for college.
Yeah, it's a really nice cafe. I was there earlier today. It's where I meet people that I'm trying to recruit for the Glen Park Association.
Oh, yeah? That's good.
And where else? Mina Spa and Glen Park Nail. They both do a nice job. Glen Park Nail is a little smaller. Mina Spa is a little bit bigger.
And Mina Spa, I've gone there a couple times recently. Yeah. They were great. And I went there specifically because I saw that they had a certification for Healthy Nails San Francisco.
Yes, I think they did get that.
Yeah, which is, because I've seen
of
people who
chemicals?
had problems. No, it's like sanitizing, right? They have a high level of
Okay.
sanitizing.
They do. They always do. They're very clean. They always do a fresh liner for the pedicure bath.
Okay.
But
Because
that's,
it can be bad if it's not clean.
Oh, yeah. You can get infections.
Yeah, that just never go away. So you don't want that.
that's a treat for my daughter. If we both go to Mina Spa and get our little manicures and
Nice.
pedicures. And
Oh, we can't forget about the library, right? Which isn't like a shop; it's like a public
Yes.
facility. But the library is a newer building. They have events there. There was one the other night that I really wanted to go to, but I had to get home, so I couldn't, about Victorian architecture in the area.
Darren is the branch director these days, and he just is so energetic, so community involved, always putting on events. He did the tiny art show earlier this year. My daughter and I picked up a tiny canvas and we each painted one.
Oh, that's so great.
And then they put them on display. That was really fun. But yeah, he's really, really great in the community. We're lucky to have him, and we're lucky to have that branch here.
Yeah. It seems like they're very active in creating opportunities for people to get together and do social things. Which, going to the social things, so the events in Glen Park.
We have had the past 2 years an art walk.
Yes. It just happened on the 5th of October.
That's right. The Glen Park Merchants Association sponsors that, and that's really fun.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you would call it an official event or not, but there's Halloween, which
Yes.
as of this recording will probably come out after Halloween, but Halloween is around the corner right now, and
it is.
Chenery Street, they block it off, and it's such a great event.
So we at the Glen Park Association were asked by SFPD, and I think 2018, they said, would we consider putting in for a street closure permit, just because it seemed really dangerous, the volume of people that were coming to Chenery.
Absolutely.
It's a huge.
So it takes, oh my gosh, it takes a lot of work to get that street closure. MTA requires you to attend a hearing and get insurance, and we're responsible for getting the barricades, and we need a volunteer at every corner. And but it really does make the event safer, and we're happy to do it.
Yeah, because there's so many kids in the dark running around in the streets.
No, it makes
all adults.
It makes for a much nicer event.
Yeah. I've watched it over the years get bigger and bigger, and it's pretty cool. And then the Sundown Cinema they were doing films in Glen Canyon.
That's right.
Oh, really? Outdoor.
Yeah, they showed Labyrinth
Lovely.
this year.
Okay.
So cool. Yeah, that's fun, as long as it's not too cold. I guess you can always bring blankets, but whatever.
Where would you sit? Is that by the rec
the
center?
field.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah, so that's good. Now, in terms of getting around, I mean, when we opened this conversation, we talked about how great the location is for getting places, but you've got the BART station, right? Obviously, you can go to the East Bay, you can go south, you can go downtown. You've got the 23 Monterey, which is going to take you all the way out to the zoo.
That's right.
That's really easy. The 44 O'Shaughnessy, you want to go to Golden Gate Park, that'll take you over that way. You've got the 35 Eureka. You've got the J Church. If you don't want to take the BART line, or you're just going into Noe Valley, you can do that as well. So there's a lot of public transportation options.
There are.
And as I mentioned with the biking, you can just hop right on San Jose Avenue, and there's a multitude of different places that you can get to on bike. So you don't need to have a car. You can be out in rural Glen Park and not need a car.
Absolutely.
And then schools, well, let's start littler and get bigger. But the Glen Park Montessori, my son went there. It was amazing. He was saying all the continents by early in preschool. They were sweet, and they did have healthy food, and they all sat down and ate together, which I think is really a cool thing. So yeah, I don't, it's been a long time since I was there, so I don't know what it's like now, but that was my experience. And then you have the Glen Ridge Cooperative Nursery, which is in the canyon.
That's right.
And that's been around since 1970s, I think.
My understanding is that the Silver Tree Day Camp has been there since
45.
Yeah, 45.
Yes.
And there were local Glen Park parents who said, hey, this building doesn't get used all year round. Can we run a preschool in it during the school year? And my understanding is it was Diane Feinstein, when she was mayor, who worked with the Glen Park neighbors and the Park and Recs department to allow the Glen Ridge Co-op preschool to operate out of that building during the school year.
Nice.
It's a really popular like nature preschool.
Yeah, so when you go back
so
in the
they get to
canyon,
go out, like
yeah, so they're out there, they're building forts, they're finding
It's lovely.
worms, bugs.
that's
you
the
know.
best.
But the Silver Tree Day Camp, I have friends who have been counselors at the camp there over the years, and my son went there for years. I mean, many parents in the city from all over the city have had their kids go to Silver Tree.
Really popular. You really got to be hovering over your keyboard at 10 a.m.
Yeah, right.
For
To
exact
make sure you sign.
But it's, when my son went last, I think it was $240 a week. I don't know
it's
what it is now, but it's
very
affordable,
reasonable
comparatively speaking.
for a week of camp. Yeah,
And they get so much from it, especially for city kids. You go and you're basically in this like fort out in the woods, and you're outside all day. It's really an amazing camp. And history going back to 1945.
Yep.
I mean, it just shows how much people really did appreciate that even back then. And then you have the Glen Park Elementary School, which
That's
your
right.
daughter goes to.
She does.
And so what year is she in?
She's in 4th grade.
Okay. She's been there since kindergarten?
She has. That was actually the COVID year.
Oh,
Kindergarten, so it was mostly on Zoom.
Homeschool.
Yeah, I think
that was an interesting experiment.
Yeah, so she had 14 days of in-person kindergarten.
Wow.
But we've been there in person ever since. And she did a really nice job on Zoom.
Oh yeah.
So Glen Park School, it's about 1/3 Spanish bilingual program and
didn't know that. It's a
2/3
bilingual.
general education. Yes. So the Spanish bilingual, it's for families that speak primarily Spanish at home.
Yeah.
And they teach them in Spanish for kindergarten through 3rd grade so that they can learn all the things in their native language.
Sure.
And then in 4th and 5th grade, they combine the classes so that they're all learning together.
Great.
For our listeners who don't know about San Francisco schools, there are a lot of bilingual programs, just so you're aware. That's the best part of the city, actually, living here. You have the option of sending your kids to bilingual school. There's Japanese, Chinese, Russian, Spanish, I think Italian. Right? That's lots of options. So our school's not all that bad.
And Dolores Huerta, I think that's what they call it,
Yes.
Fairmont.
Yes, so it used to be known as Fairmont, and now it's Dolores Huerta Elementary.
Spanish
It is. That is 100% Spanish immersion. So unlike the Spanish program at Glen Park, which is intended for students who speak Spanish at home only, this is an immersion school both for native Spanish speakers and native English speakers, and they both learn in Spanish and in English. So they're expected by the time they graduate that all the students will be fluent in both. So that's a pretty special school with a really nice community.
Yeah, and that's kind of on the border of Noe Valley.
That's right. So Glen Park, some people would only consider the kind of western part of what we call Glen Park to be Glen Park. They would consider the part on the northern and eastern side to be the Fairmont neighborhood.
Right, Fairmont.
Right.
Yeah. So some people call it like Upper Noe adjacent.
Yeah.
So that's where the Fairmont School is.
Yeah, exactly. Glen Park as a real estate district, which is 5A, that's the real estate district, encompasses all of those.
That's right.
things. Yeah. So I mean, Glen Park, I hope by listening to this, people understand kind of a little bit more of the rich history, kind of the robust today of Glen Park, and so many different things that are there. And in the show notes, we will also link some of the history sites. And
Absolutely.
there's just so much stuff to learn. There's the 5-part series by Evelyn
Rose.
Yeah, so she has a 5-part series on the zoo. So it's
Really?
yeah,
5 parts.
and it's really fascinating. Anyway, so that's just one part of it, but there's tons of different stuff to learn about. And to close it out in terms of living in Glen Park and what's great about it and everything, one of the other things is weather. Does it have the best weather in all of San Francisco? It doesn't have the best weather in all of San Francisco, but it is pretty darn good.
Pretty close to it.
I say this a lot. It's really 50-50 in Glen Park. Because if you look at the row of hills that runs down San Francisco, like Twin Peaks to Diamond Heights and down, we're really right on that border.
Right.
Where, you can kind of see it on the map. And so I would say if it's sunny in the Mission and foggy in the Sunset, I really think it's just about 50-50.
Depends on which block you're on, you mean?
Yeah, it can vary. Like sometimes on one end of my block, it's foggy and it's sunny on the other end of my block. But I would say at my house, kind of smack in the middle, like right on that border between the old Fairmont Tract and old Glen Park, I would say that you got a 50% chance if it's different weather in the Mission and in the Sunset. It's 50-50 which one it's going to be at my house.
And what was interesting when I was reading about the history of Baldwin and selling the tracts of land and things, they said, which I don't really believe this, but they were saying it was the balmy, same type of weather with absolutely no wind as Marin County.
Oh, it is.
And I said, no.
What?
That is not. So they were trying to, I don't know what they were doing. But anyways, no, that is not true. And I lived in Bernal Glen, which I kind of consider Glen Park, even though it's wrong side of the tracks. But it would be sunny in my backyard and foggy in my front.
Oh my God.
I saw that at your house before. Literally sunny on my side, foggy on the other.
You come in and you're like, oh, this weather's terrible. And you walk to the back and you're like, So anyway, so 50-50, but you do get really great weather, and you do oftentimes look up at the top of where Portola is and you see, they're socked in and we're doing okay.
Sometimes we're in the fog and sometimes we're looking at the fog.
Which is nice, because variety is the spice of life.
Absolutely.
So Hilary, thank you so much for joining us today. I think it was really informative and helpful, and always good to get other people's perspectives. And I hope people listening learned something about Glen Park. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us.
Yeah.
And look forward to bringing you more neighborhood information in the future.
Thanks so much for having me. It was so fun to talk about Glen Park with you all. And if anyone wants to go to glenparkassociation.org and read the Glen Park news, we've got a lot of volunteers writing all about our neighborhood. You can sign up for updates or just browse it online.
Yeah, and you can see my monthly blog posting on the real estate section.
We really appreciate you writing the real estate column for us.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I've been doing it for like 2 years.
I think you have.
Yeah, it's really great. So thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, see you next time.